Ruth McCracken and Trissetta Washington, two top-notch career and business strategists, are here to help you defy standards and break boundaries. Join them as they share powerful insights that have already impacted thousands of people and will have a major impact on your career, life balance, and business.
Hey friends, hey beautiful people. Welcome you all. Come on in. I'm just super excited. I really am. And the fact that we are now starting on the top of February, it's the day one in February, y'all. February the 1st. If you all now know that we have now championed the first month of the new year in 2023, go ahead and give yourself a hands clap or a pat on the back, because we're
a round of
here.
Applause.
Yes, let's do that for the cause, seriously, because we could be somewhere else, but we're here and so ever thankful that we're here on this side of heaven. Now let's go ahead and let you all get prepped up, because this is going to be super exciting. I don't know if you all was able to see our banner, but we definitely want to let you all know the topic today on Breaking Boundaries, episode 13. Oh my gosh, leveraging your voice. And most important, we're going to go through Black history and why we're going to go down certain memory lanes. But before we get to all that, some of you are probably wondering, who are these amazing, beautiful lights here in my news feed? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, for those who don't know me, I am Ruth McCracken. I am part of a phenomenal team where HR career professionals come to us here at RAM Promote Yourself when they're looking to go from being unrecognized to standing out as a superstar, and most importantly, getting rewarded the way they truly deserve so they can start attracting the lifestyle that they truly want as well.
Yes, and I am Trissetta Washington, CEO of Profitable Productivity. And what we do is partner with coaches, consultants, and thought leaders to help them have it all without sacrificing the things that matter most to them. It's what I like to call balanced ambition. And I am super excited about our topic for today. Matter of fact, our topic for this month, because we're entering into a series that is, I think you all are going to completely love. What do you think, Ruth?
Yes, absolutely 100% on the money on that one. This kind of hits home for me because it also was a revelation for me in certain cases when we decided to go down this memory lane, right, Trissetta?
Yes.
And I think it's going to definitely do the same impact. At least our goal is for you to be able to get a clarity, get the revelation, and most importantly, go ahead and like and share, because you don't want to be the only one part of this journey and this experience, right? And our goal is we want to be able to elevate the algorithm, being a forever love affair with our algorithm on every platform that we're going to be on, because our goal is to be able to impact thousands of lives so that they truly can see the value and the impact that we're presenting here on Breaking Boundaries. Awesome.
Absolutely. So it's February. Ruth already said it's February. So this is the month that we, as a nation, we are here in the United States of America. And so this is where we celebrate as a nation Black History Month. And so we found it fitting that we focus the entire month on some of the lesser known boundary breakers, right, of the past, present, and future, and the specific character traits that they hold that enabled them to be history makers, right? The history makers. And in today's episode, we're going to be diving into why we're even having this conversation, why it's relevant to today. Because, some people might say, oh, why do we need Black History Month anymore? Well, it's still very relevant.
Yes.
And not only that, we're going to highlight a specific boundary breaker of the past that you may not have heard of before, or even if you have, maybe you don't know very much about her story, right? And so it's someone from the civil rights movement, and we're going to discuss two specific traits that we believe help to motivate her actions to start breaking boundaries.
I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So everyone, if you want, like I said, go ahead and this is the perfect time that you definitely want to go ahead and continue sharing and because I'm getting, truth bumps just being here. And what Trissetta is about to unfold in front of you all, I want you to be able to tell us in the comments, how is this resonating with you? Was this more of an aha moment? Was it a new new experience? Or, I've heard of it before, but not in this angle. Because sometimes they hit different, right? When you hear it in a different way or from a different person, maybe from reading it from off of an article to now hearing it in audio, right?
Yeah.
So super excited.
Well, we, of course, this topic or this series required us to start doing a little research, right? Which is actually one of my favorite things to do. I love to research. Whenever I get on my mind a topic, I will go down the research rabbit hole quick, fast, in a hurry. And this was no different. And I felt like it was really important for us to kind of take a step back and be like, how did Black History Month even come about? Because I didn't know. Like, I didn't know the origin. So I said, let me start.
Well, remember the cliche though. Let's not, what to extent you did kind of know. We kind of went with, as many of you all probably thought as well,
yes,
that picking the what?
Shortest month of the year.
Shortest month of
Right.
the year.
I'm sure you've heard that. Like, oh, they chose the shortest month of the year to celebrate Black History Month. And, like as if it was a slight. But I want to go ahead and give you the timeline, the progression of how Black History Month came to be. And you'll have an understanding as to why February was the month that was chosen, because it was very strategic.
I know, it blew my mind. It blew my mind. And I'm sure you all are going to be like, what is the heck is Trisetta talking about? Isn't that this big old fat about being 28, maybe 29, if we're lucky on one of those leap years? Go ahead and share.
No, that's not it. So this whole thing started, like, it has, Black History Month has its origins or its root in, or got its start in September of 1915. And I'm going to read my notes because I don't want to mess this up, right? There was a Harvard-trained historian, Carter G. Woodson, and a minister, Jesse E. Moreland, who founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, ASNLH, right? And it was an organization that was dedicated to researching and promoting the achievements by Black Americans and other people of African descent, right? So it started with that. And then in 1926, this same organization, they changed their name just a little bit. They changed their name to the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. They sponsored a National Negro History Week in 1926. And they chose the second week of February specifically because it coincides with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. Right. We don't have time today to kind of get into their whole, their contributions to the civil rights movement and the abolition of slavery and all of that. Right. But we know that they are top contributors in this arena. Right. So these two gentlemen, or this association, chose the second week of February to coincide with the birthdays of these two figureheads in the civil rights movement. Then in 1976, which is what most people know about, President Gerald Ford officially recognized February as Black History Month. It's not, they didn't just reach into the air and choose February because it's the shortest month. It's because it coincides with two stalwarts in the advancement of the rights of the African American community.
Now, let us hear you all in the, I'm curious to know what are your takeaways, or what have you see as, oh my gosh, to me, when I heard this, to knowing that it goes all the way back to almost a century from today, in other words, and knowing that we have, we'll talk about more on how it's maybe presently working for the most part. And also we're going to tackle on what does it look like in the projection? What is the forecast, if you will, on the future side of things when it comes to involving and making these movements that was done way ahead of us, and many of you all who are also listening or watching. So ready to go. So let's go ahead and jump on in, as you know, as we segue, like, who were these, boundary breaking, leaders, or, go-getters, if you will, Trisetta, that decided to allow some of these traits that we're going to dive in more deeper and get some clarity for you all to see, wow, what do you all maybe need to add as a certain type of trait in order for you to be able to do certain things at ease, or just giving yourself that grace to just leveraging your voice, right? So that you know that I am being heard, but in a way that you're now getting that support.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can just about guarantee that everyone watching has heard of the infamous Rosa Parks and how she started the bus boycott because she refused to give up her seat. But how many of you are familiar with Claudette Colvin? Right? If you're familiar with her, go ahead, drop a one in the chat and in the comments and let us know if you've heard that name before and you know what she's known for, or what her kind of legacy is. But Claudette Colvin actually, 9 months before Rosa Parks, was arrested for the very same thing, for refusing to give up her seat on a segregated bus.
Whew. Oh my goodness.
Right? 9 months prior, right? So just a little background on Claudette. She was born in Montgomery, Alabama on September 5th in 1939. And she is a civil rights activist and nurse aide, retired nurse aide. And at the age of 15, wow, in Montgomery, Alabama, she was arrested because she refused to give up her seat. And I'm gonna share with you her actual story. So that's just kind of like a little overview of who she is. But I'm gonna read to you some components of her story so that you can have a really good understanding of why, some insight as to why she's lesser known, why you don't really know about her story, why Rosa Parks was the one who we know about.
Please do tell, like, what's the distinguish between the two? I'm sure there's a gap, or there's some sort of, story that definitely demands its presence as to why the two distinguish, why one was heard and carried her name throughout history. Not to say that, her name wasn't being put throughout history, but maybe not so much in the same level of visibility.
Right. She didn't have the notoriety, right? She didn't have the Claudette doesn't have the notoriety, Lord help me, that Rosa Parks says. But let me tell you about what happened. Let me spill the tea on the incident. What right? What went down? So in 1955, Colvin was a student at the segregated Booker T. Washington High School in the city of Montgomery, Alabama. And she had to rely on city buses to get to and from school because her family didn't own a car, right? And during this time period, we know buses were segregated, and it was customary for, if the bus was full and there was a white patron who was without a seat, the Black patrons were asked to give up their seat and move further to the back of the bus, or to stand if there were no additional seats available. Well, on this particular day, the bus was crowded, and a white woman got onto the bus, and the bus driver looked in the rearview mirror and asked for Colvin and 3 other Black women who were riding the bus to give up their seats, to move to the back of the bus. Well, at the same time, so the three women that were sitting with her got up and moved, but at the same time, another Black woman who was pregnant, we don't know how far along she was, but another Black woman who was pregnant came on and sat on the bus next to Claudette Colvin. And the bus driver requested that she move to the back as well. And she's like, basically, I'm tired. I'm not giving up my seat. I don't feel like getting up. And Claudette Colvin followed suit. But here's something that I think is really notable. She is quoted as saying, hold on, let me read to you what she said. She said, "History kept me stuck to my seat. I felt the hand of Harriet Tubman pushing down on one shoulder and Sojourner Truth pushing down on the other.
Whoo! Let me know how this is resonating with you all. Definitely let us know. That's powerful. That's a powerful statement.
Right? So she felt an obligation to do something about it. And it's also quoted that, or noted that she had been yelling, "It's my constitutional right."
Wow. Wow.
Right. So this wasn't your average 15-year-old.
Mind you, yes, please identify the state. Now, you all probably thinking, we live in a day in a society where our younger generation are being vocalized, but I gotta be very honest here, because Trisetta just stepped on something really very powerful. I do believe, in a great saying, there's nothing really new under the sun. It's just different scenarios and different stories, and people carrying the baton and entering into their mission in a little bit different light, but the stories are not drastically different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And see, here's the thing. So that's the story. But
Yeah.
why is it that Colvin's story was kind of swept under the rug, if you will, and Rosa Parks' story elevated to the point where everyone knows who she is? Well, Ruth, you didn't know that. I was doing some more digging after we even discussed
Lord.
her. And so I found, because I was like, there's got to be a reason. There's got to be more than just the
Yes.
the fact that Rosa Parks
Like a
was
Me Too,
affiliated
or
with the NAACP, right? Because that is a fact. Rosa Parks was already affiliated with the NAACP, so she already had that backing from them because of her affiliation. However, Claudette Colvin was also affiliated with the NAACP because she got involved.
really?
Yes, she got involved in the work because she got involved in the work because of a classmate or schoolmate who was executed for the being allegations of having raped a white woman, though he claimed that the sex was consensual. He was arrested and executed. And so that's what got her interested in activism. So she was already in that field. But the thing that kept her story quiet was, it just so happens that Colvin was pregnant.
Ooh.
She was an unwed, pregnant Black woman at the time of this incident.
Yes.
And they would have raked her over the coals. They would have had the white people would have had a field day with her had they tried to use her as kind of the poster child for this movement.
And let us put our disclaimer. We're talking about an era which we know a lot of
Yes.
things are not that majorly different now, but there's a lot of transformation and impact according to present moment than what was back then in that era. We're only here to definitely just describe the experience on some of the folks who were holding the baton, but just not getting recognized. Let me know in the comments how you are going to bat for and going to commission for a variety of committees, maybe at your job, maybe in your community, maybe perhaps something that you hold dear for that you do as a way of charity, but you're not visible enough or have the influence. Yes, yet, at least not yet, because we'll talk about what ways can you be able to expound on that, even though you may feel that what you're doing is very impactful. But how do I create a voice or leverage my voice, if you will, and be able to anchor that even more deeper? So yeah, that to me is true, Trisetta, and I would love for you all to kind of just yield in your ear even closer, because it gets even better, my friend, at the because we're just getting started. And I'm so ever grateful that you were able to elaborate some of the distinguished there.
Yeah. So, and we all know that it was a different day and a different time then. And while nowadays women are not looked down on as much for being unwed mothers, during that time period, it was extremely taboo.
Yes.
It was women were ostracized oftentimes if they were found in the state of being unwed mothers. And so it's understandable from the perspective of that time period why her story wasn't elevated in the way
Exactly.
that Rosa Parks. Was it right? Absolutely not. But you know, that's what it's history. And that's part of the reason why we have these conversations, is so we can look back on the way that things were and
Yes.
the progression that we've made. It's important for us to see how far we've come, but also to continue to look forward into how far we still have yet to go.
Yes. That
Right.
part. Yeah.
So that's who she was. That's her story. That's who she was. But we really want to highlight and draw out the character traits that she had, two specifically that I feel like she had that warranted us using selecting her to be one of our boundary breakers that we highlight for this
Yes.
month. And the first trait is what I would consider to be solidarity, right? So first, the pregnant woman who came and sat next to her, who refused to give up her seat,
Yeah.
Colvin felt a solidarity with her, a specific
Hmm.
um draw to not just it wasn't just about her, right? Because if it was just about her, she probably would have gotten up. But
Exactly.
she felt like it was something that impacted, like she was being the representative of all,
She felt nudged.
right?
And yes. And I believe she needed to create a standing point amongst, not just for her, but also for those who are maybe picking this up as a collectively, who's collectively seeing this, and I see you and I hear you. And yes, and they're raising their hand and agreeing. So she looked outside of self, is what we're getting at. And
Right.
that's good. That's a
Right.
very
Because remember the quote that I read where she said it felt like she had Harriet Tubman on one side and Sojourner Truth on the other side holding her down, right? She
mm,
felt called to it. She felt a mission, like it was part of her mission for her to stay in her seat and start the practice, start the championship of this movement to at least in segregation on buses, right?
yeah.
To be able to have to get up a seat. And this is an important trait, I feel, because in order for us to move our own goals forward, in order for us to have our own success, whether it's in our career or in our business, some things can only come by moving everyone forward.
Come through.
Right? There's this quote that says rising tides lift all ships, right? And so sometimes the only pathway to get what you want is to bring others along with you.
I agree. And it just makes a world of difference, because now you're not standing alone. Now you have a voice. You're leveraging not only your voice, but now you're impacting others, where they can now be utilized as a domino effect to use their voice to showcase that we're as a union, right? And that's necessary in areas where is breaking those boundaries, changing the rules slightly, so that way it can make its way better, at a better place, at a better journey for many more who's coming after us. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And who wants to stand alone? None of us wants to feel like we are alone in our journey or alone in the battles that we face. And when sometimes all it takes is one person.
Yeah.
Sometimes all it takes is one person to say something or do something to give someone else the courage,
Yeah.
which is another trait that I think we'll talk about later in this series. But it'll give someone else the courage to stand up for what is right as well, right? So if you want to, so if you want to share with you, we're always about practicality, right? Giving you some action. So
Practice.
some ways that you can practice this trait of solidarity are to turn outward instead of inward, right? So focus on the collective rather than just self. If you're in the workplace and you're working with a team, look for the common goal. Don't be so self-serving and like, well, I'm just going after my promotion, or I'm just going after my raise, or it's
Right.
all about me and I don't care who I have to step on. I don't care who I have to slight. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to get what I'm going to get mine. If you could shift your focus to looking at how can I what kind of goal can I set? What can I do to bring up the entire department? What can I do to bring up the entire division or the team so that so that rising tides lift all of us as opposed to just me?
That is definitely factual. And let us know in the comments if this is something you're looking to go ahead and start executing right away. You see the opportunity, but because of your day to day, maybe perhaps just the motion and the hustle and flow, but now you're giving yourself the grace to be more intentional and saying, what ways can I create that voice? How do I then represent myself, not for the sake of me, but now for those who are looking for guidance, who are saying, yes, I can relate. I understand. How can I support? How can I be of any collaboration or any contribute to what we're looking to do in the bigger picture? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the second trait that we want to highlight on Miss Colvin is ambition. She was ambitious,
Yes.
right? So I shared with you that she had a schoolmate who was executed. His name was Jeremiah Reeves, and that ignited something in her.
Mm.
And as a result, that's how she started getting involved with the NAACP. She had a desire to go into politics. She even wanted to become the president of the United States.
Now hear this. Sometimes, or many times, and many of you all could probably relate and love to see your comments, is you're needing to have to go through certain adversity, right? In order for you to actually create your story. To create your story, to leverage your voice, and then start seeing, oh my gosh, let me let my gift make room for me now that I'm so passionate. And it disrupted me, even though it was a not a good distaste, it was a distasteful incident, right? And in her tender age, but now she shifted the trajectory of her, maybe what her life could have been. The opposite of that, we don't know. But the fact that it made her yield even more deeper, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to take into consideration she was aspiring to become the president. This was 1955. Not 2015, right? This was 1955 when there was hardly any, there wasn't even too many Black leaders. I don't even know, I haven't done any research on this. I'm gonna have to go back and look, but I don't even know that we had any Black officials in Congress, in legislature at all, in the national legislature, I'll say that way. At this time. So she didn't have a role model. She didn't have anyone to look up to and say, they did that, so I can do it too. She's like, no, I'm going to break the boundary. I'm going to set the pace, right? Though and she's still living, though she never actually attained that particular desire or dream, she still made her contributions to society helped to pave the way for a Barack Obama. It helped to pave the way for a Kamala Harris.
Absolutely.
It helped to pave the way for insert your name if you desire to go into the highest office of the US.
That's the part of contribution. You may have a real big picture, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to say, how do I leverage my voice so I can take a piece of that pie and still be a key collaborator and a key contributor to making an impact, making a difference, shifting it forward. Yes, that's incredible.
Yeah. So, what are some practical ways that you can bring ambition into your career or into your business. Now, if you're a business owner, you're already ambitious. Just the mere fact that you, the, the, the mere fact that you decided to go out on your own and start a business, that we know that you're already ambitious. But how can you elevate that? How can you push that even further? And that is, think big.
I like that.
Think big.
I
right?
agree.
You know, this woman in 1955 had no role model for the role that she wanted to, the job that
very
she wanted.
minimal resources, very minimal tools.
Right.
There was technology back then where she can go to the World Wide Web and Google up who, you know, how to become the next, you know, president, or
exactly. And she was unwed and pregnant at 15 years old.
Yes.
Right. So, but she was still thinking that she was not allowing her circumstances to dictate to her what her desires were, what her goals were. Right. So think big, think beyond the station that you're currently in, think beyond what you think your limitations are, and still stretch yourself. Like, one of the things that I like to do is I'll set my goals based on kind of like what I think is achievable or whatever. And then I push the boundary just a little bit more to stretch myself beyond what I think I am capable of achieving. And that's what ambition is all about. It's not just, you know, like, what can I actually attain? How can I stretch myself to see if I can attain more than what I believe I can?
I agree. That's huge. I love it. So, and let us know in the comments, because this is something that I know that has definitely, as we were doing our research, it moved me. It moved me. It put me in student mode because I was curious. And I'm saying, wow, man, let me go ahead and remember those who started before me, and how do I incorporate my contributions as well? And that's why we're here in Breaking Boundaries. We want to be able to you know, disrupt the masses, to let them see and become more aware as to what these impeccable people did before our time. And Covens, I'm sure there's plenty of stories that you maybe could relate to. There's a lot of Covens out there who have been thinking big, and maybe perhaps you're never thought you could think bigger than where you are at today due to your current situation. I hope that this episode has inspired you to definitely start thinking big, giving yourself the grace to leverage your voice, and seeing what type of resources are out there to help maximize that. Right.
Because we want every single one of you watching to be your own boundary breaker in your own way.
Yes.
Right. And you know, that's why we're doing what we're doing.
And we're going to do it for the rest of the month as well. We made it to where it's definitely viable. And let us know in the comments, is this something that you definitely sees to be incredibly an eye-opener? Yes. Gave you the opportunity to stay in student mode like I did. I can definitely speak to myself. And I'm hoping I'm speaking to many of you all that taking the time to say, wow, let me identify these, you know, amazing boundary breakers who paved the way forward, and maybe did not get that influence, or may not have the influence like the Jay-Z's or the Beyoncé's, but now they're able to see that they were part of something way bigger that decided to enlarge in today's time. Super excited. So thank you all for coming. Let us know as a recap, as you all know, and let's Trissetta, you want to go ahead and just recap real quick? So that way we let you all know what's coming up next and what
absolutely. So so today we went through the history of Black History Month, and what, you know, how its origins, how it came to be. And then we highlighted boundary breaker Claudette Colvin and shared her story of how she was one of the first people, even before Rosa Parks, to refuse to give up her seat and set off a domino effect of our ability to move the needle and move forward with the civil rights movement, right? So she was a top contributor. And then we got into the two main character traits of solidarity and ambition that we feel are character traits that you can exhibit in your career or your business in order to help move you forward, so you can be your own boundary breaker. And then in the weeks coming, next week, we'll start getting into some of the our present day boundary breakers their character traits and moving into kind of what does the future look like? What our call to action, right? Like, what do we need to do? What kind of leaders do we need you all to raise up to continue to further this movement? And then we're hoping for our final episode of the month to have some guests on the show.
Ooh, you all don't want to miss it. If you don't have us on your calendar now, you might as well go ahead and do so. And don't forget to bring your friends, bring your colleagues. We want you all to join the fun. It's going to be impeccable. Let's go ahead and close off with this amazing stuff. I hope that you all were able to find some excitement. Go ahead and let us know by sharing your fire, sharing your hearts and your thumbs ups. And most importantly, let us know in the comments how this has definitely given you a way of a different lenses of putting on to seeing how you view the whole bigger picture, how to think bigger and all of that great masses. So thank you all so much. I'm going to leave you all with this, which is, by the way, is a really amazing, great ancient saying. Whatever you're doing now with your hands, yes, do it with all of your might, do it with all of your strength, and most importantly, do it with all of your power. Yes and yes. Well, have an amazing day, and we will see you all next time.
Bye for now.
Join and subscribe with career strategist Ruth McCracken and business strategist Trisetta Washington to the Breaking Boundaries podcast each week. You too can experience the limitless potential of rewriting rules and creating an extraordinary future for yourself.